Over the weekend, we learned the Detroit jihadist who drove his explosive-laden car into a Jewish synagogue and daycare came by his terrorist tendencies honestly. His brother was a Hezbollah commander. How many more known family members of Hezbollah are hanging out in the United States right now? It's a question I don't know the answer to, and clearly the FBI doesn't because they're not arresting a bunch of people. But I can promise you this, there are many. The homeland has never been more vulnerable than ever. Over the past 2 weeks, there have been 4 jihadi terror attacks in Austin, Texas, New York City, Norfolk, Virginia, and Michigan. In Norfolk, the terrorist named Mohammed Jalla was sentenced to 11 years in prison for trying to provide material support to ISIS. The native of Sierra Leone was released under Joe Biden and not deported, barely monitored, and somehow managed to walk into an ROTC class yelling Allah Akbar and started shooting. Remember, after 9/11, we spent years talking about missed dots and connecting the dots and a new chief dot connector. That's called the Director of National Intelligence. Well, FBI Director Kash Patel, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, CIA Director John Ratcliffe will testify before the House tomorrow at the annual Worldwide Threats hearing. They will have a lot to answer for. With us now, former Assistant Director of Criminal Investigations at the FBI, Chris Swecker, Ambassador Alberto Fernandez, Vice President of the Middle East Media Research Institute. We link to it a lot on War Notes. Everyone should subscribe. We'll be with you in a second, Ambassador. Chris, I want to start with you on this. How is it possible that people who either are known jihadists or have known ties to family members with terror ties aren't being investigated and deported?
Yeah, I think the FBI just lost, took their eye off the ball, to put it bluntly. After 9/11, we went into a proactive posture, a prevention posture. It was etched in my brain, even as the head of the criminal division, that we were to support the counterterrorism efforts. And for the next 10 years, I mean, we were on it. I don't think we saw a successful terrorist attack in the U.S. after 9/11 for quite some time. We were in that prevention mode. I think they lost that focus. And the current director has taken agents and diverted them from counterterrorism to turn them basically into immigration agents. So, as you mentioned, both of these cases.
Yeah. One could argue there's some overlap there. But
yeah, I mean, both of these individuals were on the radar and they should have been monitored. I mean, one of them, especially the Michigan attacker, had direct ties to Hezbollah. They should have been all over him. They were interviewing him as he left the country.
How many more people like these are there in America?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think there's quite a few. I mean, we know there were quite a few Hezbollah cells, and we know that before the 4 years of open borders, and then now we've seen, October 7th exposed this huge number of sympathizers all across our campuses and in our cities who aren't afraid to go out there in the streets and yell death to America and from the river to the sea and fly Hezbollah flags and shout their support for these terrorist organizations. So we know that there are quite a few sympathizers out there.
That all comes from somewhere. Obviously, a lot of it's social media, a lot of it's political, the progressive movement. There's also the mosques around America that are filled with hate. For example, here is in Orlando, a Florida imam talking about President Trump and the Ayatollah.
He wants to choose the Wali al-Faqih in Iran. يعني this man is stupid and crazy. He thinks Wali al-Faqih is one of the gangs of those drugs smugglers, That's what he lives with. Sayyid al-Khamenei, Allah alayh, the mu'min, the sahib taqwa, the humble man, the mujahid man, everybody loves him.
As I said, Ambassador, Memory TV, available on the internet, we link to it on War Notes, often has these sort of incredible clips. And what is stunning to me is that these hate preachers not only feel like it's okay, but they are encouraged, or they don't mind, or they proudly put these videos out without fear of any kind of punishment.
Well, that's unfortunately true. They take advantage of our freedoms to propagandize. And of course, the scary thing is not so much the guy you had or the other people spouting hatred and incitement, but the people that are listening to them, the people that are not on camera. the young men, the young second-generation people who we know often are very susceptible to radicalization. Those are the ones that I worry about. So the ones that are on the screen are actually the promoters. It's the ones who are the followers that we have to watch out the most for.
That's a great point. The Ministry of Internal Security in Kuwait put out this video today. They said they disrupted a Hezbollah cell inside Kuwait that had drones and high-powered rifles that was going to launch their own attack. I'm not sure why they had alcohol bottles. I thought that was forbidden, but I digress. Chris, how easy would it be for a couple of Hezbollah wannabes or sleeper cells, whatever you want to call them, in the United States, not to go shoot up a school or attack a synagogue, but attach a couple grenades to a drone and fly it over the Masters golf tournament?
I mean, any low-tech attack like that is going to be very difficult to detect, and that's I think that really, since we've degraded Iran and Hezbollah and their proxy organizations so much with their conventional warfare, they're going back to their roots. Their roots are terrorist activities. They're a state sponsor of terror. That's how they, that's what they do. And so this asymmetrical attack vector is sort of in their playbook, if you will. They know there are a lot of disaffected young people out there who are listening to the message, as was just mentioned. I think it's a great critical point to make. You look at the two young New York attackers up there, 18 and 19 years old, and they were, I don't like to use the word self-radicalized because they were externally radicalized.
Right.
They were fertile ground for the message.
I think
they took the message very quickly and took action.
Yeah, both you and the ambassador brought up a great point about the rally in New York. We're showing the guys with the IEDs that they threw at the NYPD. But let's just show a little bit of the video from the rally.
Shame, shame, USA! We remind the enemies that martyrdom is our highest honor, and the targeting of the leader only strengthens the resolve of the people.
Ambassador, are you starting to see that these preachers that then lead to this radicalization are getting more or less of a following now that the threat from Islam is becoming more apparent?
I think there's an uptick. Today, we had actually a very significant event that happened that a lot of people may have missed in America, and that is one of the key men in the Iranian regime, Ali Larijani, who's like one of the top guys there after the supreme leader was removed, issued a call to the Muslims, not to the Shia Muslims, but to all Muslims. And if you'd read it, you would think it was something that had been written by Osama bin Laden decades ago. It was a kind of broad-based appeal for violence, violence against the West, against the Americans, against Israel. A lot of people in the Muslim world mocked it because, of course, there are many Muslims who hate Iran. So, like Syrians were laughing at it. But it's not intended for them. It's a message that was put out, intended for people in the diaspora, certainly, to listen to that and maybe to take action.
Wow. The work of Memory TV is so important. Alberto Fernandez, we'll have you back. Chris Swecker, thank you as always. Gentlemen, good to see you both.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.